Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the podcast for the recently deceased. I'm Nate Roberts,
And I'm Rodney Kodak. How you doing,
and
brother?
although he's a frozen panel, you can still hear him.
Him.
His video will catch up. It's been glitching. Um, I'm doing great. How you doing, brother?
Excellent. I am excited for tonight's episode. The film we're talking about tonight is I didn't know what to. I had no idea anything about this film. This is a film that I remember hearing about when it hit, I think, South by Southwest, and around the same time that I heard about Deadstream. And so all I did, just like with Deadstream, heard about it, and then squirreled it away, knowing that I'm not going to be able to see it for months on end. And so all years and wait, and now finally it's on VOD. Uh, and it's funny when you think about it because I heard about it in the same breath. Deadstream, Soft and Quiet, had big reactions, but I didn't really know why. And they're so different.
They're so different.
They're nothing at all like,
Yeah.
and but I am pleasantly pleased with this week's episode. It's very prescient and I think what is it? It's very indicative of the time that we live in and cautionary tale. Like I think there's all kinds of cool buzzwords and neat social commentaries that are happening, and it's fucked up and it's extremely well executed.
Right. Absolutely. Just as you said, in the
Piece
same
of
breath.
art. It's very strong feelings.
Yep, just as you said in the same breath as Deadstream and totally different movies, we mentioned it in the same breath um, as All Jacked Up and Full of Worms as being two totally fucked up movies that couldn't be more different. Last week's episode, of
Yeah,
course, being the Worms, and here we are to talk about
I got worms.
soft.
That's what I'm gonna call it.
I got worms. We're here to talk about soft and quiet. Playing out in
Mm.
real time, an elementary school teacher organizes a mixer of like minded women when she encounters a woman from her past, leading to a volatile change of events. This is a very well written description. It is also extremely misleading in that you think you're going to watch a normal movie. Because
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah. There's this film is very Worms was unapologetic. This film even more so for even more uh like this is a trigger warning type movie. There's certain
Oh,
things that are depicted in this film that are going to make you extremely uncomfortable, extremely upset, and if you're easily offended, I think that you're probably not going to be able to stomach this movie. Uh, it doesn't take away the quality of it, but it's definitely a subject matter that's difficult to handle,
yep.
and it's unassuming. You don't really know what to expect until they kind of get in there. And then once it's in there, it's fucking in your face and at a goddamn 11 on the goddamn scale there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's so commonplace, but because of that, it's felt so real and natural.
Yeah, no, it's real and natural. Not to mention the camera work. This is a no cuts handy cam. I think in reality
Oh,
there were a handful of cuts, but you don't
there
really
had to have been, right?
you.
Like,
Well, so I looked it up. I looked it up. The movie was
oh,
shot
good.
in 4 nights. So if there was
Wow.
there's at least three cuts, but according to what I read, it was a dozen cuts, or they said a handful of cuts.
Sure,
But
one
you,
night
yeah, you can't
better than
tell
the other, and
when you watch. As far as you're concerned,
that's unreal.
what do they call this? They call it a one take style, I think, is what they call it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it was who did this? Hitchcock did this with the Jimmy Stewart. Yeah, Jimmy Stewart was in The Rope. Was I think he was the first time it was done, or the first time it was famously done. Um, So yeah, this.
Well, I mean, this it feels like a performance. It feels like a play or a stage act, an act on, it's just so it is seamless, and the way that the characters are always on top of one another. It doesn't have the cuts and changing camera angles and all of that, like you said. It's like theater in the round. You're in the room with the characters, and there's awful things being said and awful things happening. And there's a cacophony of noise when the characters are engaging one another in certain instances that feel so hauntingly real, and you can't escape. You're in there. There's no break to leave, to regain your composure, with like a calm, shot of a landscape where you like have a breather, like a normal film would, with the way that they're edited. Uh, Once this ball, it just gets a gentle push off the hill, and you're fucking riding this for the whole, what is it, 90 minutes? Is it 87 hour 32 minutes? It's it's a work of art,
Oh yeah.
just from that standpoint of filmmaking. Wow. I didn't know
Oh
about the 4 night thing. That's fucking
yeah.
awesome.
It was shot in
I'm
four
glad you
nights.
looked it up. I wanted to know that.
Yeah. So a little bit about the show. We like to do a short um, rating without spoilers from 1 to 10. 1 being bad, 10 being amazing. Go out and buy it right now. Um, and then we're going to transition to a longer form conversation full of spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and come back. Or if you don't care, just stay tuned. Um, Rodney, Pay the Toll is wondering if you're sick. You sound sick, he says. You doing
Yeah,
okay?
I am sick. So for the past like 2.5, maybe 3 weeks, I've actually had a bit of a cold. Not COVID, tested 2 different times because it wasn't going away. Uh, I don't know. Kids got a baby. The baby has it. She's coughing. I'm coughing. I'm congested. There's no end in sight. It's not the flu. It's just nonstop sinus awfulness for like almost going on 3 weeks here. So it's definitely frustrating. I appreciate you noticing. I appreciate you acknowledging and accepting my apologies for the quality of my voice. My tenor is different.
sh-
Hey,
sh-
some people think this kind of voice is sexy.
Shaboy the Tom suggests that maybe you've had too many worms.
I could have had too many worms, but my worms tonight are aviation gin with some roses lime, and
and,
I'm all out. So I'm on
and,
the seltzer now.
and I'll tell you the side effect of the worms was massive amounts of vomit, of
I
disgusting
feel like
vomit.
those were real vomits too. Like it looked like it was real. It did not look like a goddamn tube.
Okay. So, for me, I'm gonna go first this time. For me, this movie was extremely uncomfortable, and you'll find out why in the second half of the episode. Uh, to just endure, um, and it gets more and more uncomfortable as it goes, and the discomfort turns into tension, and then the tension, as as the as it heightens, as they keep one-upping the last scene, building to the climax. You're just in this even greater state of shock and disbelief, but simultaneously going, "This could happen in my town." And horror is sometimes, we try to suspend disbelief to like enjoy our films as far as like immersion is concerned. Um, you do not have to suspend disbelief to believe that this movie has happened in the United States, could happen in your town, and that is what makes this movie so shaking, so so terrifying. Not it's not very scary, like just as far as fear and jump scares, things like that are concerned. But if your brain is turned on and you're caught up on social politics at all, um, you this movie is hard to experience. And I mean that in a good way. I give Soft and Quiet an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. So for me, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that, when you talk about horror, this is definitely more of it's a drama of a film, a thriller type film, more than it is a traditional horror where it's a lighthearted fare. This is not. This is anything but. This is a real life scenario that is hauntingly familiar, at least to me. Maybe not in the actions that occur, but in the mentality, the dialect, or the commonplace nature, the banality at which the characters are interacting and what they're talking about, discussing, their how familiar it all is to them, this like skin that they live in, that they're so at ease with one another, this communal groupthink mentality that they all have, and that you know, I thought of the events that unfold in this film. It's like a butterfly effect in this, the way that they egg each other on throughout the film to have these horrific events unfold. It all just seems so believable and so real to to your point, that it could be in your town. And I know people that subscribe to a lot of what they talk about in this film, and it sucks. The line of work that I'm in, I can experience this. I think there's I feel that there are others, maybe some listening, that have some of the racial tension and that are occur in this film,
All right,
have experienced it
we
more
lost
so
that
with where we
last
live
sentence. If
than
you
they
want to give it
have.
again.
Sure, sorry. I was saying that there are others, I think, that have heard this kind of talk in the area that we live more so than they did from a more southern state than they used to live in. That was more uncommon there, but here they hear those kind of words and these kinds of things being said more so, and that's shocking,
Mm.
Uh, and so it was horrific to watch, but it was so beautifully done, and did have a rewarding, or well, not satisfying. It
Ugh,
had an ending.
eh,
But with the way it's
yeah,
shot, it's just it happens, and so like you're not going to get a resolution in a traditional sense of a narrative because it's not filmed in that kind of way.
right.
It's an experience, just like the other one is just a different kind of experience, and uh, I felt the same way as far as my final rating. I also gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yep.
It's kind of funny. I feel almost douchey that we feel similar sometimes with these films and we rate them the same thing. We don't talk about it. We
We
come up with
yeah.
our own scores, and they're fucking,
There is zero pregame. We literally do not discuss the films together until we're live. If anybody
which I'm pretty sure
didn't,
is evident in a lot of ways with the way
yeah,
that we
yeah,
do this, but
yeah. I'm always shocked when we score the same.
yeah,
Except for movies like *Malignant* and *The Night House*, which I thought were just like home runs. Like, I didn't
yeah.
know what to expect from you on either of these films, so I'm very happy that we matched up. Um, all right,
Yeah.
at this point, we're gonna start talking about the details. So, if you want to go watch the movie and come back, or just stick with us. All right. So this woman's group, like, I'm ready to watch this movie, and after I read the description, and I'm like, oh man, the the school, the school's gonna be haunted, and the chick from their past is gonna kill these women, and I'm just like this is a fucking like regular old horror movie, right? And cause she baked a pie, and she's like talking to the kid after school, and I like honestly like when she makes the kid like scold the janitor, and I'm like I didn't even think anything of it until
Yeah.
the next scene, and then I'm like, oh my god, that's so fucked up what she made that kid do. because there's
Yeah.
like a you know
Yeah.
a POC janitor, and she's supposed to mop after the kids leave, and he's still not there because he hasn't got picked up. So she goes, "You go tell that janitor that she's supposed to wait for you to leave to mop. You got to stick up for yourself." And I'm just like, "Oh, that's cool." She's like, super mom, the teacher, right?
Yeah, you question it because it does seem kind of a shitty thing to say. Like, don't make kids. It's uncomfortable. Like, kids aren't all comfortable enough or extroverted enough to do something like that, to question fucking authority or an adult. Like, that's kind of a dick thing for a kid to be able to do. Like, certain kids have a comfort with just being assholes to teachers or whomever. Fuck those kids. So I didn't like that. It made me question. I was like, this is odd. But I did not connect at all to your point because I didn't
Yeah.
know what to expect with what was happening in the film. And then yes, it takes a hard right
Right?
turn,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, okay.
So
I guess
there's
that's what's happening
so
here.
that so they're in a church, which I love for what happens in a bit, and
Yeah,
it's three or four. I'm not gonna say old women or elderly women, but middle-aged women, and
yeah,
two young women, and by young they're in their 20s, um,
right,
not no teens, no kids, right? and
right.
she starts the meeting like normal. You still are like, okay, whatever. Um, and the camera pans to this whiteboard, and it says daughters of Aryan, what is it, daughters of Aryan, like
I don't
justice
remember the
justice or
actual.
something like that.
Yeah, like right.
And I was just like, what the fuck, like, I think I paused it and like
Yeah,
like
so
took a
you
minute. I was like, okay, all right, all right.
yeah,
How do
because you have
I?
to, you have to put yourself in mindset
Yeah,
that you're gonna watch a film that's gonna be about this, and you don't know where. I mean, yeah, you don't know where it's gonna go, but you kind of have a
right.
feeling of where it probably will go.
Yeah, but and
And
so
it's gonna be more of this.
right. So now the movie continues with these women who for all intents and purposes seem like completely normal everyday average women that you've met in your
Yeah.
life. You have an aunt that acts just like this character. You have maybe an older sister who acts just like this character. You know all the women in this room, right? Like the way that they're talking to each other and the things that they're talking about, and then they throw in the white power at the end of each little bit. So like it's they're not saturating the dialogue with the white supremacy. Just
Yeah, and
showing
that's what
that.
I think is so well done about it. It is so innocuous and it's so commonplace. They all know and trust one another. They're all comfortable with one another. Even some of the women that are there, uh, unassumingly with what the intent of the meeting is. There's a newcomer to the whole group that someone just knows because they worked with a person.
Right,
But the thing with racism that this film tackles that is so well done is that it is that innocuous nature that there once when you have this mindset or this perspective, this outlook, um, as a human being, you feel so normal, um, and you just assume that people that are like you subscribe to the same shit, and it lets you talk a certain way. Because that's what I experience is that there are people that say the most horrific, offensive, racist things as if it's normal shop talk.
right,
And I'm like brand new on the job, and they just start saying it. And I'm like, what the fuck?
yeah,
What did you just say? Like, but they just like assume because look at me, I must feel the same way they do. And
right,
it's so scary. And this film, in this first scene, like presents that. Like, yes, this is real life for some people, and it's I think that some people might like to refuse to accept that as reality and live in a world where that's not what happens, but it fucking is. Uh, I can attest to that. And so yeah, um, it just they slowly start to let it bleed in the racism and the privilege that they have and how they want to position themselves in ways to antagonize or to repress people of color. It's very it's subtle, but like they're kind of emboldening one another with their ideas about how they can do this or that, and then maybe one of them thinks like, oh, well, why don't we get a list of all the people of color or all the illegals, and then go door to door,
Yeah.
and they're like, that's some of them are like, maybe that's a little bit too that's too in your face even for us. Let's start a little bit slower, and it's like shocking.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but it's what it's refreshing that the film is just like in your face and just doing it. It's similar to how things were presented in Master. That was
Right.
another film that dealt with race that we watched earlier in the year, which was well done. We both liked.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
this film
I think we
takes a
both gave
different
that
route.
a 7, right?
Yeah,
I
it
think it
was
was
highly
sevens.
rated.
Yeah. So, so this so this movie continues just by showing you that these the one woman was an actual Klansman, like her husband was like a prominent member,
Her father, I think.
yeah, her
Yeah,
father or someone. Um, so it just shows you how these women or people like this, let's say, let's not even care their gender. People like this
right.
are normal, active, everyday people in your community,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they're these are teachers, these are grocery clerks.
Yeah,
That's what they do. You know, these are just they have normal jobs. This lady was a teacher. She's teaching kindergarten, and she
yeah,
just came from school to
and
go to this meeting. She's the
sh-
one running the meeting.
she's the one running the meeting, right? Um, okay, so the meetings. This is one of my favorite parts of the movie. The father of the church pulls the head lady aside, pulls her into the other room, and he goes, look,
Emily, yeah,
look, I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but you guys have to go. And she's
yeah.
like, what? She's like, what?
You need to leave
You need to
immediately.
leave. Yeah, I wouldn't have let you do this if I knew what type of meeting it was. You
Yeah,
have to
he's
leave.
like,
Yeah, we're not going to
I'm
argue
not gonna
about
report her
this.
right now, but you need to
Yeah,
leave.
I'm not going to report you if you leave right now. And then he just like
Yeah,
closes the door and walks away. He's like, okay. And
yeah,
you're like, all right,
which
all
was
right, all right.
refreshing
Yeah,
because you've got someone that's the church is not condoning this. This is great. That's a good
right,
step.
right.
So but like her reaction, she feels so entitled, and like that's the thing that they capture with this is like you see there's the camera can focus on some of the characters from time to time, and you can see like their true nature or how they're dealing or processing with the events that are occurring, and it happens from time to time throughout the whole film. Because we can't stress enough the way that the film is shot, this in real time events. It's in
yes.
real time.
It's
There's
in real
there's no
time.
cuts. There's no
Yeah,
jumps. There's no. It's minute for minute for minute. This is
yeah,
happening in one evening in the hour and a half of time. It's happening, from fucking 6:30 to 8 p.m.
yeah,
That's it. Uh,
yeah. No,
and because
that's
the way they shoot
so amazing.
it, I know the way when they focus on this character, you see her reacting to the pastor, and she's like, "Fuck this guy! What the fuck is? I'm not doing anything wrong,"
Yeah,
And she's like, "Okay," and she cancels the meeting. Like, let's go back. Um, let's get some wine, and we'll reconvene at my place. And things disperse, and it brings it back down to like a group of only four of them. With it's the main girl, the shop clerk, and then the two young ones. One of which is brand new to the crowd, and one of which has kind of been around for a
right.
little while, but it's,
And the new one also works at the shop, and
yeah,
is freshly out of prison for something we don't know. Um,
yeah, and I love that character. It's in
she's
the way
so
that
good.
it evolves is
Yeah,
so important. She's wearing a battle vest of sorts.
yeah.
And did you recognize the German on the back?
No, I didn't.
Uh, it's love to hate
Oh,
in
okay.
German.
Oh, okay.
Lieb de Hass, and so because I had to look it up. I was like, it seems like because I've been in. crowds where like guys will wear those kinds of shirts, and it's some sort of a an SS or a KKK type innuendo or something that's
Sure.
referencing it. I've been with guys before that are like, that's a skinhead, like like American History X, like they kind of
Yeah.
popularize certain looks and stuff. And so then whenever you see it out in real life, you're like, that dude's low key representing Aryan Brotherhood with this
Yeah.
little logo on his shit. So like I've always been interested in taking part with a movie to help inform that character. It's the iconography of it. And so that's what that is on her. So it's like a subtle way to clue in that she's definitely not uh a stranger or naive about the awfulness that she believes in and that she's going to enact
Yeah.
moving forward. It's sort of like a foreshadowing.
Right, right. She does mention that when she got to prison, she fell in with a group of like-minded ladies, and
Yeah.
and you can assume that she's white, so it must have been a group of white people, like not necessarily white. So, you can assume some things, but
Hmm.
from what we know of from film and TV anyway, that prison
Yeah.
definitely like segregates down right to groups of skin color. Um,
Right.
so they go to the wine shop. Now the wine shop or the grocery store is owned by
Right.
the one of the ladies, the one who's with them in the
Yeah.
van, and they're
Kim.
and they're closed, but she's got the key, so they go in to get the wine, and because they're in there, a couple people walk in. Now there's some interesting backstory here. It's two Asian girls. One's older, one's younger. Don't really know. Probably like 20s and teens, or early 30s and late teens, early 20s
Right.
maybe. Um, the older of the two um, accused Emily, the main character's brother, of rape, and he is in prison for this.
Hmm.
This is going to come out in the next few minutes of the movie. So the two new girls don't know anything about this, but of course the shopkeeper and Emily obviously know. And she wants wine as well because she's had a long day, and the shopkeeper's like yelling at her like, "We're closed, get the fuck out of here. We're closed, get the fuck out of here." She's like, "I just want a bottle of wine," and Emily, decides to step in, let her get her wine, and that's when she's like, "Oh fuck," Emily's here, you know. Um, we've got this history, blah blah blah. So she gets the bottle. She said she was going to get the most expensive bottle, so they make her get the most expensive bottle. She brings it over, and the shopkeeper's like, "That's $300." And she pulls out $300 in cash, and then they're like, "Who carries around that much cash? Fucking hooker, fucking prostitute." She's like a fucking waitress, and then I think there's a little scuffle as they get out the front door.
Yeah, because she talks back, she like
Yeah,
gives it back to them. She's like, yeah, waitress, you fucking moron.
yeah,
Like, that's
yeah,
who. And like they're like, what the fuck did you say to me? And like, it's like it's just showing dominance, asserting power. There's four of them. There's only two of them.
yeah,
So the white women want to humiliate and disparage the two Asian girls that are in the shop, and they do it in very overtly in aggressive fashion, where there's
yeah.
screaming match and kind of pushing one another by the end of it before they break up and they leave the store, and they're all fired up. I think the shop clerk even pulls her gun
Pulls her gun. Yeah,
on
right,
them.
right. Yeah, she pulls her gun on them to get them, to help get them out.
Right.
Um,
And eventually Emily's husband shows up to
right.
Craig to help calm the situation. And he's almost a level-headed type person, but it's just
Yes.
that he's kind of been there, done that, it seems, and he knows this is he almost has this like patriarchal attitude, like in the subtext, I think, with the way he handles it, where he's like, this is just dumb broad shit, like whereas like he believes the same things they believe, but they're going about it in this dumb way,
Yeah.
uh, and are like, they're really naive and stupid with what they're trying to do. Like he's trying to keep them in check, and he's annoyed with them, even if he does agree with what they're
Yeah.
espousing.
But
So
Emily, no, Emily has like
it
complete control
she
of this
calls him
guy.
out. Yeah. He's like,
Yeah,
you don't want to be some pussy bitch. What are you doing? You don't want to fucking be a man? You want to be a
yeah,
little bitch? And I'm like, holy fuck. Like
yeah. You're not gonna be
this
the man.
movie is it's in your face.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It definitely is. It definitely is. Um,
yeah, so she emasculates him to like go along with what she wants to do, which is they want to go antagonize these girls. They want to break into their house and like take their passport.
yes, yeah.
And
Because they think she's not gonna be home for a while. They somehow have an idea of what their schedule is or whatever. Or maybe they
no,
know
I don't even think they
they
don't
know
even think
that.
about it. They're like, let's just go.
Yeah,
They
well,
just
yeah, they know that they're walking, and they know
yeah,
that they
that's
can
the
drive
folly
there,
of
and they're
it.
like,
Like
yeah,
they there's no potential repercussions that would arise from them doing what they want to do, and they are encouraging one another, and it's the whole idea of groupthink and
yeah,
they're emboldening one another. They think that they're invincible. You
yeah,
know, they're in the right. They're not doing anything wrong.
sure,
They got loud first. We're in the right. You know,
yep,
uh, so they think that they can do whatever they want. So they want to go to
yeah,
the house and they want to break in and they want to get the passport and fuck with their home.
yeah.
And so that's what they're gonna
So that's what
do.
they're gonna do. They get there, and it's very loud, like a party movie, like
Yeah.
whoa, let's get him, and they're like, no, don't break the glass. Look for a hide key first, and they find it. They find the hide key, and so they just walk in, and then they're going through all their stuff, and they're messing it up a little bit. Um, and Craig's like 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. He comes
Yeah.
back. He comes
And,
back.
and that's where it's like the whole thing. It's like it makes sense with the way that it's done, and it's so uncomfortable. Everything about this, like
Yeah,
we're talking about it in kind of like normal tones, but uh, from the second that meeting really gets underway, you're kind of on edge and you're
yeah,
uncomfortable the whole time. And this
yeah.
is now heightened,
Oh
really,
yeah.
really tense
Well, right after
because like
that.
it's just unnerving. Like, the one girl's playing the piano, she's playing Heart and Soul, and it's just normal. And then she's like paying pounding keys. They're like making these comments about the fact that they've got a front load washer and dryer. I would love to have a washer and
Yeah,
dryer. These
yeah,
fucking bitches, and it's like, and they're
yeah.
just like
They live on the
they're
hill.
piling it all
They have a
on.
view of the lake, and well, they say some fucked up shit about the brother too. Like the brother would never fuck an Asian person.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
So yeah, so many awful racial things are said.
oh
Obviously, we're not going to repeat,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's horrendous, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if there's certain things where you can't stomach it, like this is not a film for
yeah,
you. But I think it's definitely worth watching to get through because this is real life.
yeah. Uh, so she comes home, and they grab her,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
they tape her to a chair, and then eventually, not even that much longer, the younger daughter or younger sister gets home, and Craig has to chase her down and drag her back inside, and they tape her to a chair, and that's
yeah.
when this this
Because
this group think this mob mentality, um,
yeah,
of these four white supremacists, right? Like it's like it's not just normal groupthink, normal mob mentality. It's like
right.
on the worst level that it could be, right?
Yeah.
Of these
Well,
people,
and they didn't expect this to happen, and
right?
now that it's happening, they're not one to just be in the wrong in any situation, so they're not going to let these girls away to say their side of the story. They're going
Right.
to control the narrative. They're going to tie them up, and then they're going to regroup and think about what do we do to make sure that nothing happens because we didn't do anything wrong, and they stand by that the whole
The
time
whole time.
of this fucking movie.
Yeah.
They rationalize and explain why they were in the wrong. They did
Yeah.
something wrong, and that's why. And we're defending this. That we didn't ask for this,
Yeah.
and it's like it's so absurd.
So they get this idea to like just abuse them into
Scare
silence.
the shit out of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
scare them
Um
straight so that they will
yeah.
not talk about the fact that they got held hostage.
Yeah. And they start with the younger one as also kind of like psychological or emotional uh, torture to the older one because the older one is,
Right.
obviously like looking out for her. um, and they make a mistake, a simple mistake. They they
Yeah, they just
they
start. They're just putting food and drink and
shoving food down
mayonnaise
her
and
mouth, and she just goes into anaphylactic shock because of peanuts.
uh,
And
yeah,
then so they pull the mouth gag off the older one. She's like, get the EpiPen. It's upstairs in her room. And then the one woman who could have done it just slowly walks back to the group, staring at her, going, "Oops, there wasn't enough time."
yeah,
And now we have a dead girl on our hands. And now this woman, who's the one who got out of jail, and this is the fun thing about her character as she escalates through the movie, is she becomes more and more in charge
yeah.
as
She becomes the alpha
the alpha
real
as
fucking
real
quick.
quick because she realizes she says even at the beginning of the movie, so what's your role? Because everybody talks about their role, and she goes, well, I'm just kind of like a soldier, like you just tell me, you just point me at something and tell me what to do, and I'll go do it. And they're like,
Yeah,
great, that's so great. We need someone like you. And what's so funny about that, saying that, is that she becomes the boss. As soon as she realizes all these other women are weak,
yeah.
she takes charge because that is like that's she learned that shit in prison.
Yeah, she has walked the walked
Right.
where they have all talked the talk. They have
Yeah.
never done anything like this. This has all been talk, and like that's the thing that's so absolutely insane but perfect about the way that this film is constructed is that they're actually the most fragile, weakest people imaginable that are scared and frightened for their lives every second of every horrific thing that they're doing. When they're faced with actually doing it, they're shaking with fear as they're doing it because they know inside of them that there's something fucking wrong with what they're doing, but they're going through with it, right? And it's the Leslie, the newcomer, who is like, no, fuck this. This is the way it is, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna take charge of the situation. And she's the one that escalates it, where she's like, well, we have to take care of this other girl now. We have to make it look like it wasn't us here. We have to clean up in a way, and we have to do certain things to her to make it look like it wasn't four women that were in this home. We have to make it seem like it was a sexual assault, and
Right.
so that's she's like, I'll do this,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
fucking horrific.
Yeah. So we have to make her look like she was raped. We have to kill her. We have to dump these bodies. And when when they find the bodies because of the supposed rape, they won't think it was us.
They won't
And
suspect them. Yeah,
and while after we dump the bodies, we're gonna clean the house, come back, clean the house, bleach the house, blah 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 blah. Yeah. So she takes some kind of apparatus. Thank God it was off screen. Um,
yeah,
then she takes a pillow to her face, right? The classic
hmm,
um,
yeah. Smothers her.
suffocation. They get like this big tent kind of thing that like zips up.
It's yeah, it's like a big sleeping bag type thing. It's like
Or,
yeah, just like
yeah,
a large satchel or Ziploc
yeah.
type. Yeah.
They can take
They throw the bodies in
take
there, and
both
then
bodies.
they're gonna take Kim's minivan down to the lake, to the
Yeah,
dock, put it in a boat, row it out, and dump the body, and then that's what they do.
that's what they do. And you see the bag moving on the drive down,
Yeah,
and so she didn't do a good enough job strangling the older sister. The older sister does pop up, still
out of the
alive.
water.
But you don't feel good about
Right.
it.
No.
You almost wish that they were both dead. Like
Eh,
it's a tough moment in the movie where you're like, oh well, at least now she'll go to the police and they'll get caught, and then you're just like,
yeah.
uh, but will they? U.S. justice system, small white
I
town,
know.
like who knows what happens next? And she's gonna have to mourn her sister who she just watched die like 30 minutes ago.
Right,
Like
because the true horrors of the events that are occurring will never actually be exposed, you know?
right,
This kind of thing, especially with this kind of a demographic, when COVID first started happening, and there was all this anti-Asian sentiment that was going out there, and they had to do the whole stop AIP hate, and it was so fucked up. Like, but you would hear about incidences where you just find about an assault or something and you want to hear all of the details. This film shows all the details, but on a news report, it'd probably be like there was a home invasion where a person uh, died by accident and another one disappeared or was like left somewhere and then escaped. Like you want to get into all the details of the awful events that occurred, and this film is just showing you all of that. And so, this kind of a thing has probably transpired a lot in the nation's history and in human history, but especially now, this is a very prescient movie with the current climate as far as cultural and racial warfare that seems to exist or be occurring uh, in our society. And so, uh, yeah, the film ends with sort of a silver lining, but yeah, it's kind of like it's not even so much that you feel good about the conclusion. It's just that
Yeah.
maybe you take a little bit of comfort. It's a small bit of a salve on the wound
Yeah.
that was inflicted upon you from what you just watched.
Yeah, honestly, like I even wanted to feel better, and her, and just like the quick thought process of what her being alive actually meant versus what the fantasy of her surviving meant was just like, oh God, I think I would have rather it cut to credits with them both in the water.
Yeah, well, and that's what's so smart about the way that it was filmed too. It being playing out in real time, you aren't ever going to get that conclusion. You're never going to get the homage of the police rolling onto their
Yeah,
houses and them going
right.
away in handcuffs with somber music and her in the hospital with family or at the grave of the other one. That's fairy tale Hollywood happy ending bullshit.
Yeah,
This is real fucking life meant to be an experience of that nature, and so it's not going to ever provide that for you.
right.
It's just a traumatic experience that you are living out with the characters that are in the movie, and it's just so artfully done. It's hauntingly tragic. Like it'll stick with you for sure. I will not forget this movie.
Oh yeah. Okay, soft and quiet, 8 out of 10 from both of us. Let's take a second to remind you that this is a podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Samsung Podcast, Podcast Index, Listen Notes, RSS, Google,
Woo.
Apple, Pandora, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Podcast for the recently deceased. Yes, YouTube. We have to upload these videos to YouTube after broadcasting them on Twitch. You can also go to podcastrecentlydeceased.com. Thanks for tuning in. This was a great night of two very, very out there movies, and I was glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm glad that we got to talk through it. Definitely feel better about having watched them and got to work through some feelings after seeing them with you. So that's great. That's why we do what we do. It's
Yeah.
fun and hopefully it's entertaining for everyone out there.
Yeah, unanimous suggestion. Go watch Soft and Quiet. You will benefit from watching this movie. For the podcast for the recently deceased, I'm Nate Roberts,
And I'm Rodney Godek. Take care.
and we'll see you next week.